Welcome to the Build Your Life Coaching Biz podcast, where you get to learn how to become a professional life coach and start an online coaching business from scratch. I'm your host, Krista Kathleen, a professional certified coach and spiritual business mentor. In 2016, I got divorced and left my full-time job as a registered nurse and decided to bravely answer my calling of becoming a life coach so I could help to change lives as I traveled around the world. And now I want to help you discover your purpose too. Having the freedom and flexibility to be your own boss and make as much money as you want right from your laptop will be one of the best gifts you ever give to yourself, your family, and the world. In these episodes, I'll give you real coaching combined with proven strategies and spiritual practices in order to help build your dream coaching business that feels perfect for you. Hi, everyone. So I am driving home from Hot Springs, Arkansas. This was my fourth Freedom Friday trip, and I have about 4 hours left on the car ride. So I wanted to tell you all about how my weekend went. So buckle up and get out the popcorn or go on a walk for your dog with your dog, or put your feet up on the couch, however you like to listen to my podcast episodes, and let's go ahead and dive in. So full disclosure, I did not leave on a Friday. I actually left on a Saturday. So I don't think this could be technically called Freedom Friday anymore. And I have decided to extend my Freedom Friday trips into weekend long trips because, surprise, surprise, I felt like after driving anywhere from like 3 to 6 hours that being in a location for 24 hours was not long enough. So I ran it by Kyle. He was cool with it, and got my mom to help out watching Lincoln. And so I made the 6-hour drive down to Hot Springs, Arkansas from my hometown, St. Louis, on Saturday morning. And now it's Monday morning. I'm driving back. And I've already listened to some of my audiobook, The Prosperous Coach, which is a really awesome book. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend it. Already went through my tasks for the day, messaged my virtual assistant, and now I'm twiddling my thumbs and okay, there's 4 hours left. So we're going to create a podcast episode. And I went on a ghost tour last night for my last night there. And so that's just a little fun fact about me. You know how some people are into true crime? I'm not really into the true crime thing, but I love a good ghost story. And my favorite way to see a new city is through a ghost tour. Because I just think it's such a fun and creative way to learn new facts, and it's never boring. And the tour guide last night shared lots of historical facts about the city, but it was just so entertaining. And then I'm holding my fingers by my teeth, just holding my breath in anticipation of what's gonna happen next. I did that for the whole hour. And then also just being scared that I was gonna feel a presence or see something, even though I've never seen a ghost or spirit yet, which I've heard that that's a personal choice. And for right now, I'm choosing not to see things. I just don't know if I'm ready for that gift yet. Clairvoyance is what that's called. So, but yeah, I learned so many interesting facts about Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I want to share some of those with all of you, especially for all of you that have gotten bitten by the travel bug like me. If you know astrology, if you have Sagittarius in anywhere prominent in your birth chart, you probably like to travel. I have Sagittarius in my 5th house, I believe, which is my day-to-day, how I like to run my day-to-day activities. And so for me, being able to travel long-term and travel in a way where I can make it a part of my routine schedule is very, very important for me. So yeah, hopefully you guys have been following along with my journey on my Freedom Friday trips. I started it this past summer. Like, literally, this summer has been one of my most favorite summers ever. Except, I would say, except for the 2 years that I was traveling around the world. And see, it all goes back to travel. Like, when I travel, I just feel so free. I feel so alive. All my senses are stimulated. I just feel more like myself than doing anything else aside from coaching and running my coaching business. That may be the one other thing that really like makes me feel alive and filled with purpose. And then of course being a mom too. There's that one. Can't forget about that very important role as well. But yeah, so I decided that once a month I'm going to do these Freedom Friday trips to honor myself, to honor who I was or who I am before I became a partner, a significant other, before I became a mother. And before I met Kyle, before I met Lincoln, I loved being a solo female traveler. And I loved just like getting in the bathtub every night and pulling out the Airbnb app and being like, ooh, where can I go next where I've never laid eyes on before? Like, it just like lights me up from the inside. So for anyone who's listening to this, if you are like the same way, I would love to hear back from you, because a lot of times I don't meet people in Missouri or St. Louis that are as passionate about traveling as I am. Now, when I lived in Seattle, oh my gosh. I mean, people on the East Coast and West Coast love to travel. I think they're just way more adventurous out there than people in the Midwest. That's my perception, because whenever I was traveling around the world, I always met people from New York, from Florida, from California, from Washington, Colorado. Never, hardly ever met people from Missouri. And that's why, like, it was so hard for me to get into world traveling. It was my ex-husband who really brought it out of me, and he was in the military, and a lot of people in the military love to travel. And so even though that relationship didn't work out so well and we got divorced, I am so very grateful that he introduced me to traveling on this level, and that I got to take that away from that marriage. But so yeah, I I went to Indianapolis, I went to Garden of the Gods, Illinois, I went to Columbia, Missouri. Let's see, I'm missing one other place that I went to. Oh, Louisville, Kentucky. So I've just been picking places that are within 3 to 5 hours from St. Louis, and taking a little road trip. And when I'm on this trip, I get to just be by myself. I don't have to be on anyone else's agenda. I don't have to like do house stuff. I don't have to respond to motherly duties. Like, I get to be like completely off the clock. And I've realized that I really need something like this for my mental health, because I work from home. So I'm never getting a break. Like, I am on 24/7 in my house, whether it's doing, motherly stuff or household, routine duties, or working on my business. Like, I don't have a place where I can escape and get away like people do who travel for work, or people who have an office outside the house. And, there's a part of me that's like, well, Krista, you're so lucky and you're so privileged to be able to work from home. And I still totally feel that, like, over and over again, I would choose to work from home. I love working from home, but I also recognize that it's not healthy to not get away every once in a while and have a separation, have like distinct boundaries. And the way I could definitely tell that it wasn't good was like in therapy, I would just be crying, and then I would be like so agitated at everything in the world. And I was just like, I need to take a break. And so of course, there's a part, and now that I'm extending these into a whole weekend, there's a part of me that feels guilty. I feel guilty that Kyle's having to pick up extra responsibilities with Lincoln. And I told Kyle over and over again, if you want to take a trip, like just let me know and then I'll watch, Lincoln that weekend. Or, I try to make it as even as fair as possible. But I just I have to get away from the whining and the complaining of having a 3-year-old toddler. And and honestly, the whining and complaining of my partner Kyle as well. I'm gonna be honest. A lot of times it feels like I have 2 children. I'm just putting that out there. I'm sure some of you can relate and understand what I'm saying. And thankfully, like my job is very low stress levels. As a nurse, it was not. If I was still a nurse and a mom, I would probably need to take like a week-long vacation every month, to be honest, because that job was the ultimate stress, ultimate. Hence why I had to get out of it. But yeah, so I just this is a way for me to recharge, to refill my cup, to become the best mother possible, the best life coach possible. I need this and it's important to me. And that's why I'm starting to talk more publicly about it and share about it with others so that others feel inspired that they could do something like this for themselves too. And maybe you can't take a whole weekend, or maybe it's even just like staying in your same city and getting a hotel for the night, or even if it's just staying at like a friend's house, like something where you can be off the clock, like completely off the clock. And I think that anytime you're around your kids, even if they're sleeping or you're at home, like you're still on the clock. You still have like one foot in the door. And so we really need to like create those spaces for us where we can decompress and process and slow down a bit. And I just think it's really, really important, especially I just started listening to this podcast episode called After Dark. It's from the Instagram account, Big Little Feelings. Dina and Kristen, they are toddler experts. I freaking love their Instagram account. I'm not a huge Instagram fan, but I love their account. And I love now that they have this podcast and they're just very funny, real, down to earth, give great parenting advice. So their first episode just came out last week, and I was listening to that as I was hiking this weekend. And they were saying just how mental health issues and anxiety are at like an all-time high for moms right now. Hence why so many moms, there's this whole movement of moms on mushrooms. Moms are microdosing to just be able to do something to take off the edge, you know, to manage anxiety. And so this is my way of doing that, of managing the anxiety and taking care of my mental health. And as I was like listening to them talk on their episode, and I'll put it in the show notes, I was just like, yes, like I hear what you're saying. Like I sure people were like getting scared walking in front of me or behind me, because I'm like fist pumping the air and like, yeah, I so feel that way too. I agree. I hear what you're saying. And I'm just like talking to myself. But I just felt like they saw me, they got me, they understood as a toddler mom that we really do have to be proactive with taking care of ourselves and being intentional and planning it. So that was a long explanation of kind of why I'm doing this, but I just really hope that for some of you who are parents, that again, that it inspires you in some way to keep taking care of yourself, letting support in on a deeper level, so that way you can show up and really be the most refreshed, calm, grounded version of yourself. And it's just hard to do that when you're on all the time. Okay, so I decided to go to Hot Springs, Arkansas. I had never been before. And I have heard of a lot of people who've been here. My mom has gone a couple times with her husband. And then I know of some people who gone there on their honeymoon, and I didn't really know a whole lot about it. It's 1 hour southwest of Little Rock. I've never even been through Little Rock, and I drove through there, and I was like really impressed. It seems like a cool city. There was, a lot of big buildings. Sorry, sometimes when I think of like cities in the South, I think of just like farms. I mean, let's be honest, that's kind of what most cities in the South are, just kind of these little podunk towns. So Little Rock was like an actual big city with skyscrapers, and it was on a river, and I just like stopped briefly to like get a coffee, but I want to go back and explore it more. And so then I got a motel room for 2 nights. That was about a mile away from, they call it Bathhouse Row, which is like the historical downtown area of Hot Springs. So it was really cool because I walked most of the weekend, and I absolutely adore walking to places. Like, I hate driving. I know, kind of ironic that I'm on a road trip right now and I hate driving, but I really do. Like, I love being outdoors. I love getting exercise. I always feel like you're winning the day when you can start out first thing in the morning walking somewhere, like getting fresh air and sunlight and um, just exercise. And so I love that I just got this cheap little motel room and that I could walk to all the attractions and the restaurants. And some fun facts are that it was Bill Clinton's hometown when he was a boy. So that's kind of cool. I don't remember what number president he, one of our presidents recently, and you know, you guys probably know all about the Monica Lewinsky scandal, but yes, so Bill Clinton grew up in Hot Springs, Arizona, and apparently, so I was really surprised of how many rundown buildings there were when I got there, and I thought it was going to be a lot busier than what it was. Because I mean, there's natural hot springs there. And I feel like anytime, I mean, think about like Yellowstone, like anytime there is like a natural attraction, like it just draws people from all over the world. So, yeah, I was really surprised to find that a lot of the buildings were run down or abandoned. And so I found out why when I did that ghost tour last night. And and then you see all these different, they have like all these different plaques all over the city. So at one time it was the spring training spot for the baseball players, and the reasoning why is because the baseball players would drink so much after practice, like drink so much alcohol after practice, that they would like to go like rejuvenate and recharge in these bathhouses with the natural hot springs to restore their health. I don't know if that's why exactly they put spring training there, but that's just what it said on one of the plaques. And then there was all these like gangsters that used to hang out there, like Al Capone, and then all kinds of movie stars like Marilyn Monroe that would vacation down there. And apparently it was the first resort city in the world. Okay, either in the world or in the United States. He was giving us a lot of facts last night, and then it was like getting late and my brain shuts down after 9 p.m. But, so he just kept saying over and over again that Hot Springs did not used to be a little sleepy town, that it used to be the hot spot of America, and people from all over the world would come to sit in these hot springs, to see the movie stars, to stay in these fabulous hotels, again, which is just crazy because that's not what it's like today. But the thing that I thought was really neat was, as you're walking down Bathhouse Row, on the left-hand side are all of these beautiful bathhouses that are very similar, like in design, to how like they have bathhouses in Europe, and they're just kind of like these gorgeous gorgeous buildings, and on the inside they have tile and they have glass ceilings, and then they have the pools that are filled with the water, and then they control the temperature because the water comes out of the hot springs at 147 degrees, so you can't obviously sit in that. So they have to. I was a little bummed by that. I was thinking that there was going to be like all these natural just hot spring like little rivers and creek beds on some of the hikes that I went, and there was like places where you could see the natural hot spring water coming out, but it was way too hot, and like I said, it would be way too dangerous to sit in. So that's why you need to go to these bathhouses to do that. And so on the right hand side are like all of the little boutiques and touristy shops, and then on the left hand side is this mountain where the hot spring water is coming out and the bathhouses, and it's actually a national park, which is kind of crazy because most of the time when you visit a national park, it's like way outside the city. You have to drive really far to get to it, and then there's not many like buildings and establishments there because it's a national park. But this, it's like the national park was literally on the other side of the street. So it was cool because like as we're walking down the street, our tour guide was like, okay, so this side of the street is Arkansas and this side of the street is not Arkansas. This side of the street is a national park. It's not considered part of Arkansas is considered like federal government land. I never seen anything like that. So that was really cool. It was really fascinating. And they had a couple of fountains around the city on the national park side where they had the hot water coming out of the fountains, and people from all over will bring their buckets and their containers and fill it up with the local water because the water is supposed to be, very cleansing and very healing, and the hot water just naturally kills the bacteria. So I took a couple of containers. I have them right here next to me and stocked up on some of the water. So that was really cool. And yeah, I did a lot of hiking. Like that's always going to be my go-to anytime I travel. I'm always like looking for a good hike and then plugging in a podcast. And it's just like my favorite way to get exercise and rejuvenate in nature. So I went on a couple of hikes. I found some cute little coffee shops, and I always try to find like a good vegan place because I can't eat dairy. And then one of the bathhouses, Superior Bathhouse, was turned into a brewery, which is really cool. And they use the natural spring water to make their food and to brew their beer. And I swear I had the best pretzel I've ever had in my entire life. Like one of those, really big, soft pretzels with the beer cheese. So I didn't have the beer cheese, I had the honey mustard, but it was so sweet, and it was salty, and it was soft, and I would go back just to have that pretzel again. It was amazing. It was so amazing. And then what else did I do? I got a little bit of work done. That was kind of nice too. Like I just hung out in bed. Usually like I'm at home, I'm like waking up at 5 a.m. and trying to get stuff done, trying to get the house clean, trying to get Lincoln's lunch made and get stuff done for my business. And I just spent like a good majority of the day just like sitting in bed and watching TV and doing some stuff for my coaching business, the Born to Coach Training Academy. So that was really nice. Like no one was calling my name. No one was like, Mom, Mom. So that was like a treat in itself. Oh, and then I found there's, it's called Lake Hamilton, that is a little bit north of Hot Springs. And so I drove up there and I just sat on a park bench and just looked at the lake for like an hour and meditated and journaled, and it was amazing. I mean, not very exciting, but it was amazing to just kind of like sit and do nothing. And so I really do try to find like a good balance of trying new things and seeing new things when I'm in new cities, but also doing just like restorative and rejuvenating activities too. So I'm not coming home like absolutely exhausted and depleted. And let's see, what else did I do? Okay, and so then I decided to sign up for this ghost tour. I was like at 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday night. I wasn't sure how many people would be there. There was like 30 people or more. It was quite a few of us. And it was an hour long, and we just walked along the streets of downtown Hot Springs with our tour guide, and he showed us all these different buildings that are haunted and the stories of why they're haunted, and then gave us lots of information about the city as well. And a couple of the things that I found were fascinating was the city at one time, when people were building their buildings, the the I don't know, whoever makes those decisions in the city was telling the business owners, like, okay, your business has to be at least 2 stories high, and the bottom floor can be like whatever type of business you want to own, but then the next floor after that, you have to either have prostitutes or you have to have like a bar slash alcohol in your building. And these were, both illegal at the time. It was like during Prohibition. And so they're like, we're going to have the cops and the sheriffs to help manage it for you. You guys don't have to do anything, but you have to like keep the secret. And this is like what you need to agree to in order to have a business here in our city, which is kind of crazy, right? Yeah. So all of the buildings in Hot Springs are at least 2 stories high, and so that's how they made all their money, was with gambling and prostitution and alcohol. And then I believe it was like in the 1960s where they finally they like outlawed all of that, and then that's when all of the city lost its money, and a lot of the hotels weren't able to survive anymore. And just after the 1960s is when the city slowly started to decline and was no longer the hot spot of the world. Well, it's still a hot spot technically, but you know what I mean. Was nowhere near the #1 resort spa town that it once used to be. I definitely did not see any movie stars there this weekend. But also learned that, so they have this like really creepy, spooky, abandoned hospital up on the hill. And it was the first Army, Navy, federal hospital in the United States that was built during the Civil War to, help take care of the soldiers. And so, they had to shut that down, and the building's still there, but it's like slowly decaying and crumbling. And then we learned about like where they put all the dead bodies in the city, because just like from all the diseases and from the wars and everything. And then people who would get into really bad debt would basically not be able to leave the city alive. So there was a lot of death in the city, and I can usually like fairly quickly pick up when there's been a lot of death in a city, because I'm just like sensitive in that way. And I could feel it. And even as much as like I love Hot Springs, and I think I would go again, like I also felt like an uneasiness the whole time. And I have felt that in other cities as well. Like I did not like London because I could just feel the death that had happened in the city at one time. And then same with Budapest, Hungary, did not like it there as well. So I'm just kind of like extra sensitive to that type of energy, and don't really enjoy being staying in those kind of towns too long, where I can feel like a turbulent past in history. And so there was a lot of little crystal shops in Hot Springs. And so I went to one of them before the tour, and I bought a couple of crystals, because who doesn't want to buy more crystals? So I'm obsessed with them. I got a blue calcite wand, and then I got a smoky quartz for Kyle. And there is another really cool crystal that I want to get. It's like called the dragon crystal, like It's not serpentine. It starts with an S. It's kind of similar to that. That I just like absolutely fell in love with, but I didn't get it last night. And then I also bought like a little mini travel smudging kit because I smudge every day at home to just like clear the energy in the home. And I always have trouble sleeping somewhere the first night anytime I go somewhere new. And I realize it's probably because of like all the extra energy in the room from the people who cleaned it and then the people who were in it the space before. And so I finally bought like a little smudging kit. So I have a little feather, I have Palo Santo, sweetgrass, a little abalone shell, and then sage. And so I made sure to like cleanse and sage myself before the tour and then after as well. So that way, just no entities or dark energy could attach itself to me or surround itself with me. And I think it worked. I didn't sleep the best last night. Anytime I like watch ghost stories and that, I'm always a little bit on edge. So, but it just felt better knowing that I was protecting myself. And so, yeah, maybe that's just a tip I can share with all of you. I'm sure a lot of you are, sensitive as well, like me. You probably have multiple clairs, clairsentience, clairvoyant, clairaudient. Maybe you see things, maybe you hear things, maybe you feel things. And if that's the case, I would highly recommend smudging your room, smudging yourself. So that way, you're just like keeping your energetic aura clean, especially with traveling. You're just coming into contact with so many new types of places and new types of people and energy and creating so many new types of cords. And so I'm going to like start doing this more regularly too, to see if this helps with the exhaustion. Cause I find that after I travel, I just get so tired and so depleted. And I don't want to feel that way after I travel, I know that traveling is just a natural, like yang type of activity anyways, but I don't want to just feel like I need like completely like emotionally hungover. So this is going to be my little experiment moving forward. I'll keep you all updated. But yeah, so there was a lot of, I saw the Ohio Club, which is where Al Capone was like his favorite like hangout spot. There was just like a lot of gangsters in the city. There was a lot of baseball players. Yeah, a lot of movie stars that stayed there, and it was like I was just trying to like imagine the city at one time as this like just basically kind of like New York in a way. That's what they were going for. Oh, and then they had the first drive-through mortuary as well because they were having so many people dying. Okay, so this is what happened. They wanted to make more money and draw more people to the hot springs. And they were like creating advertisements in the newspapers, and they were showing people sitting in the hot springs, which is not true because like I said, you can't sit in the hot springs because they're so hot. But there's a drawing of people sitting in the hot springs, and then the like title says, come sit in our hot springs and cure any disease you have. And like that's all that it said, because the guy was explaining like at the time they didn't have any medications to cure diseases, so everything was cured holistically. And so people from all over the world were coming because their doctors were telling them like, you have this illness, you have this disease, there's nothing else we can do, it's uncurable. So guess what they're going to do? They're going to want to go to Hot Springs, Arkansas to feel better, to fix it. And so then they would get there, and then the doctors really took advantage of the situation. They're like, okay, so for the next 2 weeks, you need to sit in these baths twice a day, and it's going to cost this much money. And then every 2 weeks, you need to get your prescription renewed until you're healed. I mean, of course, like, they don't know what they're talking about, and they're just trying to get people to stay as long as possible. And then on top of that, when people are staying there, they have to pay for their hotel, they have to pay for their food, right? And then they're probably going to like want to see shows and everything. So and then what ended up happening was people want to get better, and then people are just, all these sick people are coming into hot springs, and then they're dying, and then they're spreading their diseases to everybody else in the city. And so just like so many people were dying in hot springs, and the mortuaries were filling up so much that they needed to create a drive-through mortuary, where it was this like brick building that was cut. They cut out an archway shape in it, and on either side of it there's holes in the wall where almost like they could pull out a coffin, put the body in there, put it back into the wall, and they said they could put 75 people on the right side, 75 people on the left side, and you literally just drive through, you drop the body off, and then you go on your way. Right. And then someone could come by, a family member or whoever would come by and pick up the body. So kind of a crazy concept that there's a thing as a drive-through mortuary, and that Hot Springs was the first one to have that. And apparently too, in the shut down Navy Army hospital, that they had the first refrigerated morgue in the nation as well, because most of the times morgues were, prior to that, morgues were kept cool from blocks of ice, and so they had figured out how to create a refrigeration system because they had so many bodies piling up that they had to do something differently to preserve the bodies and prevent the decaying and the smells and all the other gross stuff with that. So yeah, there's a big presence of death and decay in that city. So that's why I think it's just, it has such a fascinating and rich history amongst the hot springs, and there was nothing boring about it. Let's just say that. So that was pretty much my trip, and now I'm on the way home. I think I hopefully only have about 3 hours left. And I am still deciding where my trip is going to be for next one. I've really been craving going to Bend, Oregon. So I've never been to Bend. I've been to a lot of places in Oregon, but not Bend. And I really want to experience the nature and the hiking that they have there. So I might see if I can make a trip out there, but who knows? So it'll be a surprise for you and me to see where that next Freedom Friday trip is. So, all right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me on my trip, and I'll see you in the next episode.
I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed at this time. And if you're ready to up-level your coaching skill set and learn how to confidently coach at the transformational PCC level in order to help your clients get bigger breakthroughs and better results, then join our Born to Coach Training Academy at buildyourlifecoachingbiz.com/certification.